everybody, what is going on? Welcome to Regular Josh 1. Be sure to hit that like button in this video, it really helps out my channel, and it's growing because of you guys. So, Sponge on the Run finally came out on Netflix. So it's great to see that they decided to release it early. I mean, wait, what?
Somebody,
Oh, so it's on Netflix, but not in the US. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, people, while other countries get the third SpongeBob movie this year, the US still has to wait until next year to get it, while also having to pay a premium on CBS All Access, which is now going to be called Paramount Plus. Fun. Well, thank God there's absolutely no way to get around that and see the movie right now. I mean, as if VPNs don't exist. Now, I recently got the opportunity to actually check out Sponge on the Run. Kinda like my Candace Against the Universe review, this was completely a spur-of-the-moment thing, but here we are. Honestly, who would have thought that SpongeBob would have gotten 3 movies? You got the SpongeBob Squarepants movie, which in my personal opinion is the best SpongeBob movie ever. I mean, it had to be, considering that this was supposed to be the end of the series. Then about a decade later, we have Sponge Out of Water. For what it was definitely a good movie. There are certain things that I kind of find myself not liking about it, but overall, it was fun. Now, you have Sponge on the Run, which was originally going to be It's a Wonderful Sponge, an origin story, which when you think about it, would have been an interesting premise for the franchise. Though, if you look at the original poster, Lord knows what the movie would have been like. This movie is going to be a total trip. They knew exactly what they were doing. When the trailer came out, it was a surprise to me. Now the story revolves around Gary going missing. Again, King Poseidon, not King Neptune this time, alright, has taken Gary away, and now SpongeBob and Patrick go on this big adventure to the Lost Atlantic City to get him back. It was kind of confusing when I first saw that they changed the plot of this movie and the title, and apparently Keanu Reeves was in this movie too, but nonetheless, it looked pretty interesting. Definitely sucked to know that I wasn't going to be able to see this movie until next year, even though everyone else gets it this year. I still will never be able to get over that. However, I found a way around that obstacle and was able to view this movie. And let me tell you, this is certainly the weaker one out of the 3 movies. I mean, by no means is it bad, but it's not necessarily all that good either. It's just okay. It is an interesting movie. Are there some good qualities? Of course there are. Does this movie have problems? Absolutely. One of them being, well, in a strange way, it's kind of boring. I mean, you'd think a movie that has SpongeBob going to an underwater version of Las Vegas would be more interesting. Hell, he even freaking gambles in the movie. I'm not kidding. SpongeBob gambles. Even with that, it's just wasn't really exciting, I guess. I mean, it was kind of just there. It was out there and a little weird and kind of out of character. I mean, you really wouldn't expect SpongeBob out of all people to know how to gamble. Also, it could have led to some funny moments, to be honest, but it just didn't. And yeah, that's kind of one of the other problems with this movie. It wasn't really funny. Yeah, I did have a laugh or a chuckle every now and then, but it wasn't really all that often throughout the movie. I guess they were trying to go for some different kind of comedy, but it didn't work for SpongeBob. Now, this doesn't make the movie bad by itself or anything, but it certainly doesn't help with how boring it is at times. I do have to say, though, the movie is stunning to look at. It is different from what we're used to, but I do like the way it's animated, how it looks, and how detailed it is. The only drawback, however, is that it doesn't really feel like SpongeBob. And that's not entirely their fault, because the whole movie feels very different than the cartoon. And sometimes that can be a good thing. Example, the SpongeBob musical. As different as the show was, it still managed to feel familiar to the franchise. Plus, it was also able to capture the charm that SpongeBob had while also having its own charm to it, which is why so many people and critics loved the show. This movie does not capture the same SpongeBob charm. If anything, at times, it just felt like a generic kids movie. I mean, you have some pop cultural references, celebrity cameos that certainly felt out of place. I mean, a Tiffany Haddish fish Just let that sink in for a minute. You even have pop songs in the movie, and remakes of older songs sung by current artists because that trope hasn't been done to death. They even attempted some fourth wall jokes, and even those didn't really work out. It didn't help that the story wasn't really all that focused to begin with. Can I just say that the reason why Gary was taken away was completely stupid? Granted, you have Plankton who sees a letter around town that the king is looking for a snail, and he uses that to get rid of SpongeBob so he can try to steal the Krabby Patty formula. That, I have no problem with. That's fine. What I do have a problem with is that all of this was literally because the king wanted snail slime so he can get rid of his wrinkles. Seriously? That's the best reason they came up with? Also, Gary was the only available snail around because King Poseidon, he captured all of the others and they all ran out of slime? What? It makes just as much sense as SpongeBob and Patrick sharing the same dream while they're talking to Keanu Reeves as a sagebush in the Wild West, having to free some flesh-eating cowboy zombie souls, and a random musical number with Snoop Dogg happens while a guy named El Diablo comes down to stop them from freeing his zombie crew. Yes, this all happens in the movie, and no, none of it was necessary. Honestly, I was just confused throughout the entire sequence. I had no idea what was going on. Now, there's honestly a lot more that I would want to talk about in this video, but the last thing that I am going to have to mention, of course, is the Camp Coral sequences. In the third act of the movie, the characters talk about how they all met SpongeBob, and all of that happened while being at Camp Coral. I do have to admit, these moments were pretty nice, but here's the major problem. This completely goes against how SpongeBob really met these characters. I get it, there isn't an underlying story to SpongeBob at all, barely, but it was still established how they all met each other. Why did they think it was a good idea to change that? And to be honest, I would be fine if this Camp Coral thing only applied to SpongeBob meeting Patrick or maybe even Squidward. But the biggest issue I have with this is how SpongeBob met Sandy. In the first 2 episodes, we literally see how these two meet. It was a nice introduction to Sandy. We got to see them both have some sort of common interest and the start of their friendship beginning to form. The way they did it in this movie was fine and all, but can someone please tell me how the hell a land creature is going to a summer camp underwater? How on earth would she even know about that? And why go such great lengths to go to a camp? That's the part I just cannot seem to wrap my head around because it literally makes no sense. So my overall thoughts on this movie, it could have been way better than what we got. The story is very unfocused. There's some filler moments that really could have been taken out. King Poseidon was completely uninteresting. The jokes weren't that funny, too many celebrity cameos, it was boring, and it just felt like a very generic kids movie at times. I'm not going to talk about the ending here because I don't really want to spoil it for you, but just know that the conclusion was very odd. Not the very end of the movie, even though that was weird too, but the conclusion to the overall plot was just very weak and generic. What would I rate this film? Honestly, I'd have to say that it's either a 4.5 or a 5 out of 10. The movie wasn't terrible, there were some pretty good moments, the first act of the movie wasn't really too bad either. The animation is nice, and I do have to say, I do like how the world looks in this. However, I think the best way to truly describe this movie is, this is not a SpongeBob movie. It's a generic kids movie that just happens to have the SpongeBob characters in it. If you want to see the movie for yourself, I'd say go ahead. You may like it, you may not, but as for me, this movie is just okay. Well, that's my review of Sponge on the Run. Have you seen it yet? What did you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell to be notified on my next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, you're hearing it from a regular bunny in a regular world. See you next time.